Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. For those of you that are new, my name is Jeff, and this is an episode you've all been waiting for. And we're going to get right into that. But before we do, I got to clarify a few points. First of all, Lippert makes the frame, the main part of the frame, in a jig for all the manufacturers. So this is not just a Grand Design issue. All the manufacturers that make big rigs like this, the Keystones, the Forest Rivers, the Alliances, and yes, of course, Grand Design. All of those guys up there, they pretty much use Lippert for frames. Where they differ is each of the manufacturers dictate to Lippert, based on the floor plan and the model of the rig, where to put different frames, or I should say cross members and supports and things of that nature. In addition to that, because of cost, they dictate the size of the material and the thickness of the metal. And that's why I got the report, and I know a lot of you were shocked to hear this, that 7 out of 10 of these rigs are going to have a frame issue because they're just built too heavy from the factory to just stay together on the conditions of the roads that we have here in the US. Now, in addition to that, many of you left comments. I was surprised how many that had basically said they had the same experience on their rig, and it was from all brands, all manufacturers. So it is not just a Grand Design issue. So I wanted to clarify that. In addition to that, many of you had asked, why don't you just send it back to them? Why don't you just tell them to keep it? Well, it doesn't work that way. You've taken title of the rig, regardless of how long you've had it. You can't just give it back to them. You've far exceeded the lemon laws. I'm not an attorney, so don't quote me on this, but I think we're exceeded the lemon law rules on the rigs if you're down the road several months and it starts to fall apart. So you just have to fix it. Anyway, as I mentioned before, I'm very happy with repairs. This rig is now like a tank when it runs down the road. You don't have all that flex that I had before. You can feel it in the steering wheel. You feel it in the suspension. It's a solid rig. And dare I say, probably the strongest 376TH on the road today, regardless of the year. They did a lot of welding and a lot of cross members and a lot of gussets and things like that to strengthen the front end of this rig. So, which leads me into what happened while my rig was in service. So that day I went to pick it up, as I mentioned in the last video, we went through the walkthrough. They showed me everything they did, and they did a few extra things that were on my list of things to do, but just hadn't gotten around to it. They saw that there's a broken drawer slide, a couple little things, little tiny things here and there. They went through the whole rig and they actually fixed all that stuff. So I was very grateful for that. I got to scratch them off my to-do list. But while it was in there was a mistake that happened. And sadly, it was a huge mistake. So I've got to apologize. I was so frustrated with everything that was going on. And as each thing was discovered, I should have grabbed my camera so I could record all of that. But again, my frustration took over and I forgot to record a lot of this stuff. So I apologize I don't have footage for that. So I'll do the best I can in describing what took place, and I'll put a few images up here and that'll help tell the story a little better. Sometime when they were doing the welding, at one time or another, somebody forgot to disconnect the batteries. And as you know, the batteries are grounded to the frame. And for those of you that don't know why that's so important, if you weld on a frame that has anything grounded to it, you're essentially taking thousands of watts that a welder produces and you're driving it through all of those electronic devices, or all those devices that are grounded to the frame. And anyone who's a welder probably already knows this. When you're welding on a car, truck, or again, anything with a battery on it, you've got to disconnect the batteries and just make sure the batteries aren't grounded to the frame. I don't want to say destroyed because it was fixable, but they basically did thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of damage electrically. Let me get into what that was. First and foremost, when I did the walkthrough, my wash machine had an error code of F09. Didn't know what that was. Didn't do that when I brought it into them. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and look that up when I get home and figure out what's wrong with that. In addition to that, I noticed a couple things not working right, which I didn't really take too much note of while I was there and we were doing the walkthrough. But as soon as they said, okay, great, and I signed the paperwork and they walked away, and it was at the end of the day, so they all went home because at about 3:30 everybody leaves the service centers. A few people stay in the offices. But I was hooking up the rig and I was trying to get the slide outs in, and they stopped. And then all of a sudden alarms went off. Alarms by my Victron equipment. And it kept saying low battery. I said, well, how could that be low battery? So I couldn't get all the slides in. So what I did is I plugged it into the truck, waited a little bit, and there was a little juice there, and I was able to get the slides all the way in. But then I couldn't get the hydraulic jacks up, the landing gear. I was like, what is going on? So I went to go try to start the generator, thinking maybe they had it unplugged and the batteries are dead. Generator wouldn't start. So I was like, what the heck? So I'm sitting in their parking lot, it's getting pretty empty out there, and I've got nobody to go to and say, well, what's going on? Well, long story short, I kept the truck plugged in and it put a little juice in the batteries, just enough so I could get the landing gear up. So I got the landing gear up, I got everything stowed, and then I towed it back to the Grand Design campground, if you will, where I was staying prior to dropping it off at service, and hooked it up. Well, when I hooked it up, that's when I discovered I had some serious problems. So when I plugged in the power, alarms went off. And I couldn't figure out why I had alarms going off. Alarms are going off on my Victron equipment. And that was puzzling me a little bit. So I unplugged it. Alarms kept going on, kept saying low battery, low battery, low battery. So I plugged it back into shore power and just left it plugged in, and then in time the alarms went off. And I said, something's wrong here. In addition to that, I couldn't get the power transfer switch to transfer power from my batteries to the shore power. So I had to go in and manually shut everything down in my Victron equipment and my batteries, shut the batteries off, and then plug it back into shore power, and then the power inverter, I shouldn't say inverter, the transfer switch clicked over to shore power and everything started working. But I couldn't get my one control to work or anything like that. So without boring you guys with the details, I reached out to Grand Design, and they started giving me a hassle saying, hey, we don't install that equipment, we don't warranty that equipment, we can't help you. And I got a little frustrated. So I had to write a long email explaining everything that was damaged in the rig electrical wise, and I had to copy a senior person at Grand Design whom I'm friends with to help see if they can help me get some traction with the service center, because by now this was like 3-4 days after I picked up the rig, and the service center was not responding and give me all sorts of other replies, is not my problem kind of thing. Well, anyway, when I sent that email, within an hour I got a phone call. Everything is going to be looked at and taken care of, but I was stranded. I didn't have power in the rig unless I was at shore power. Battery power wasn't seeming to working. Victron equipment wasn't hooking or connecting up with anything, and I had issues. So I had planned to continue my journey up north and do the Hershey show, which is going on right now, and get up to Maine to see the fall colors and that. But I had serious problems with the rig, and I thought the best thing for me, get down to my home base in Florida, where I could get some work done on the rig and wait for parts, because I knew it was going to take a lot of parts. Just to give you the laundry list of everything that was damaged, all my smart home stuff, my switches and lights and things like that, and Alexa, and my water alarm systems, the water in the wash bay, or water bay, water under the sinks, things like that. Those sensors, those were all blown. The washer and dryer was blown. Let's see, the one control system was, I don't want to say blown, but it was shorting out because of the way it was grounded and because the way they did this. They essentially were welding with the batteries connected, so it shorted all that out. But the only thing that didn't get blown on board, it's easier to tell you what that is the refrigerator, the microwave, and the 3 TVs on board. Everything else on board that was plugged in was blown. So I had to replace everything. And it wasn't until last Tuesday when I finally got all new lithium batteries, because yes, they blew up every single one of my lithium batteries. And the one thing I want to mention, and I think Grand Design's very grateful for this, I reached out to Battleborn and told them about the problems that I was having and what had happened, and they were very sympathetic. In fact, what they said, even though this was not their fault, they said, don't worry, Jeff, we're going to go ahead and replace all of your batteries under warranty. Just go ahead and get them shipped back to me. We have to go through a testing process of the batteries to ensure that they are damaged and need to be replaced, and we'll go ahead and replace those batteries. So you guys at Battleborn, you went way beyond what I expected, and I appreciate that. But they replaced all of my batteries under warranty at no cost to me. Well, no cost to Grand Design. So I think Grand Design was very grateful for that as well. In fact, Grand Design, I think you owe Battleborn quite a bit. So thank you, Battleborn. I really appreciate your help on this. And as always, guys, if you want lithium batteries, these are the best on the market. I highly recommend you get yourself some Battleborn batteries. If you buy a new rig and it's got lead acid batteries, get rid of them right away and order yourself some lithium batteries from Battleborn. One of the Victron charge controllers, solar charge controllers, was tripped, needed resetting. One of my Victron inverters was having issues. That had to be fixed. And that, as you can see, adds up quickly when you add all that stuff up. So again, I finally got my batteries last Tuesday and installed, and now everything is back to working order, and the rig is back to, it can go down the road now. I'm not stranded. I was stranded, I gotta tell you, driving home from Indiana to Florida, and I stopped for the night. I had no power. I couldn't get the generator going. I had to jump start the generator from my truck, which was a whole hassle because I didn't have jumper cables long enough. Then I had to get a friend to help, or not a friend, but a stranger with jumper cables to help. It was just a nightmare. And then until I got the batteries looked at, I had to use a 12 volt 50 amp charge controller just to run the rig until I got those looked at. And here's a little video of me getting those batteries replaced. Okay, everybody, here we are at the very last repair or replacement of the repair from the complete disaster that Grand Design had done on the rig, and finally getting all the lithium batteries replaced. Now let's kind of turn here. You see the guys are pulling out the temporary batteries, and we're going to install all brand new batteries, as you see here on the cart from Battleborn. So this shouldn't take long for them to pull those out, the temporary batteries, and then we'll get the permanent ones back in. And then, as I mentioned, we are finally done with all the things that got damaged from the power surge and the welding on the frame, and we can get back to life on the road. And by the way, the guys that are doing this work right now for us, it's called Unplugged RVs in Sanford, Florida. I'll leave a little link down here if you guys want to go to them. They are an authorized Battleborn dealer. So if you have any issues with your Battleborn, and they're experienced with the Victron equipment as well, and programming and coding and things of that nature. And this is the advantage of being a little person that can crawl all the way in there.
I'm normal size, thank you.
He's normal sized. And there's the temporary batteries we had in there keeping the system live. But all of you have known me and been watching me for years. There's no way in hell I could fit in there. Not a chance. Okay, everything back to normal. They just have the last terminals to hook up, the positive and the negative, and this job is done. The new battery switches we have up there will turn the batteries back on, and the system will be up and running. It has been such a nightmare, crippling along with no power, then temporary power, and then all the other things that had to be replaced because somebody made a mistake and welded on the rig without disconnecting the batteries. Blew everything up. So as you can see, those guys were kind enough to loan me a few batteries while I was waiting for the new batteries to come in, so I was able to limp along. I shouldn't say limp along. I was fine with those 3 batteries. I didn't do any boondocking anyway, but at least it was enough to keep everything powered up. They did replace the at the same time they did replace the power transfer switch because that was fried. So all in all, it was an accident. I'm sure people at Grand Design didn't do this intentionally, but with all the welding they did on board, one of those times they forgot to disconnect the batteries and blew everything up in the coach. I mean, it was a mess. I did finally get Grand Design. They were very good at the end here to cover everything. They even covered my fuel costs to go up to get the rig fixed and to come back to Florida. So they covered that as well. And everything else the insurance company took care of. So I'm excited. I'm back. My rig is back. And here we are late in the season. And now I can finally roll again. But I've got a couple other plans coming up. So, in fact, this is a good time to tell you guys there will not be a video next Sunday because of these other plans that I've got working on. And I'll fill you guys in on that after that when I come back. So it's a little breather, no video for next Sunday. Thanks for tuning in. I want to thank all of you for all your comments. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and hit that bell to let you know when I'm putting out another video. Thank you very much. Make it a great bucket list day. Goodbye.